everyone, this is Sincere, a Teacher Sincere's channel, and welcome. This video is about one of my favorite authors, okay? Now, I can't just pinpoint and say I have one particular #1 author that I just absolutely love, but this lady comes at the top, okay? I love a lot of different authors of different nationalities, different races, and write different genres, but this woman is my absolute favorite. She won the Nobel Prize in 1928. And her name is Sigrid Undset. Okay, now Sigrid Undset is a classic writer, but she's not very well known. Her type of writing was called Christian realism. She started out writing modernist novels in the very beginning, which in her first part of her career, would just set in modern settings in Norway. She grew up in Norway, but she was born in Denmark in 1882, and she died in 1949. For a while, she actually lived in the United States during World War II because she was opposed to the Nazis, so she came here. But I just absolutely love her writing, and I found out about her by accident. Years ago, my father, when I was growing up and very young, my father bought 4 different volumes of encyclopedias. The first set that he got was World Book. And in the old World Book encyclopedias, in the very back, there was synopsis of different great books and great literature. And I came across the one about Sigrid Undset, her collection of 3 novels, the trilogy, Kristin Lavransdatter. And I just absolutely, you know, I was just fascinated by the synopsis. And then a few years later, or rather a number of years later, when I had gotten into university, I think it was my sophomore year in university, my father gave me a copy of Kristin Lavransdatter, and I still have the copy. It's very much worse for wear because the dust cover is like it's been eaten up, okay? But this is my copy right here, and it's 3 novels, okay? Kristin Lavransdatter. The book itself is in good condition, but not the dust cover. But Kristin Lavransdatter was the book with the 3 books, the series or the trilogy was what helped get Sigrid Undset the Nobel Prize in 1928. And so I just absolutely love this. It's about the life of a woman in medieval Norway during the 14th century. Starts from her childhood and goes all the way through her life until her death. It's it's very realistic, very interesting, and you would think, oh, it would be very boring because it's set like 700 years ago or more, but no, it's absolutely interesting. It covers Kristin's life growing up on a farm. She's the daughter of a prosperous farmer named Lavrans, and Lavrans, her father, had married young, a woman that was a little older than him. They had been in an arranged marriage, and the marriage had not been exactly happy, even though mostly because Kristin's mother was not happy in the marriage, because when she married Kristin's father, she had been in love with somebody else, okay? And she didn't want to marry Kristin's father, but over the years they became more reconciled to each other. But the marriage was sort of a cold marriage because her mother just didn't, you know, have much feelings for her father. But her father was a kind, decent man, and it was a religious family. Kristin grew up being very religious, but then things change when she meets Erland Nicolason. Erland had gotten into trouble because he had taken the young wife of an old man, and had run off with her, and they were living together. And the church at that time was not tolerating this. The church confiscated his land, and he was both of them were excommunicated. So later, they had parted ways, he and the woman, and and he met Kristin when Kristin was much younger than him. But yeah, it's a really interesting story. It covers her life. It talks, it covers her marriage, her motherhood, the question of dealing with sin and guilt. It's really just really a wonderful work of art. Sigrid Undset's description of nature is absolutely stunning. The nature in Norway, the forests, the fjords. Now, with this volume, actually, it's written in sort of like what would be like English that you would see, that you would read like in Old King James Bible. But in the 90s, a woman named Tina Nonnelly translated the book into more modern English, okay? This is book one of the trilogy called A Reef, and this is Tina Nonnelly's translation. Now, in this one, it's the old translation I have, and it's made up, like I said, of 3 books, and the 3 books are, let's look here, The Bridal Reef, The Mistress of Hussaby, and The Cross. Okay, so I just absolutely love this trilogy. It's just it covers her life. There are times it actually brought me to tears, and I would love to reread it sometime. I definitely would love to reread it sometime. I tend not to reread books, but I feel that Sigrid Undset's books are definitely worth rereading. One of the second books that I read of Sigrid Undset was the book Goner's Daughter. Okay, now Goner's Daughter is set about 200 years before Kristin Lavransdatter, and it's the setting is in Norway and Iceland. Okay, and it's she sort of wrote it, sort of patterning it after the Viking sagas, and it's the story of a young woman named Vigdis Goner's daughter. And Vigdis is sort of like the spoiled, snobbish type daughter, like little rich girl, okay? She's sort of spoiled, and kind of just snobbish. And what happens is she falls in love with a man. Well, actually, he falls more in love with her than she is with him, okay? She is sort of like hard to get. She plays like hard to get. Okay, and she falls in love with him. He's a Viking warrior, and it ends up that he rapes her. Okay, she had wanted to love him, but he rapes her. And so I'm not going to give much more spoilers about the story, but it's a story of revenge. Okay, it turns into a revenge story. Okay, because they both were attracted to each other, but I would say that their pride was the thing that got them into trouble ultimately. But yeah, Vigdis has to learn how to survive being a single mother in a definitely a man's world. And at this time, Norway and Iceland were very much both sort of like they were just sort of in between. They were sort of kind of a mixture, sort of Christian and pagan. So it's a really interesting book. I read this years ago. Some critics have called it like a proto-feminist book. Okay, proto-feminist. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a feminist. Okay. But yeah, it is an interesting, adventure, revenge novel, love story. Not long, but very worth reading. Now, as I mentioned previously, Sigrid Undset, before she started writing books set during medieval times and the Dark Ages, she actually had wrote modern novels, and her novels focused on characters dealing with their marriages, things like that. The problems of modern marriage, people feeling fulfilled, all these type of infidelity, all these things. So she dealt with these type of things, these modern novels, and about people trying to learn to cope, the big changes that were coming, that were happening in the early 20th century. And so, but I've read like some of her different novels, very much enjoyed them. She wrote, I know, one children's book called Happy Times times in Norway. I enjoyed that. So everything I've read by her, I absolutely enjoyed. Now, she also wrote another, now this one was a 4-part or tetralogy novel set in medieval Norway, and it was, the main character was a man, and his name was Olav Andersen. Okay, and these are, I have the 4 books. I read these years ago, and basically the trilogy is called The Master of Hesviken. Okay, this is the first book in the group, called The Axe. Okay, let me get up here, The Axe. All right, and what this tetralogy deals with is the life of Olav Andersen and the woman that he loves. Okay, Olav Andersen, I'll read the back of the first one here, The Axe. It says, set in 13th century Norway, a land racked by political turmoil and bloody family vendettas. The Axe is the first volume in Sigrid Undset's epic tetralogy, The Master of Hesviken. In it, we meet Olav Andersen and Ingunn Steinfansdatter, who were betrothed as children and raised as brother and sister. So they were engaged as to be married as children, and they were raised as brother and sister. Now, in the heedlessness of youth, they become lovers, unaware that their ardor will forge the first link in a chain of murder, exile, and disgrace. And so yeah, it basically, you have also here a world where it's split between pagan retribution and Christian piety. Okay, so it covers the life of Olav. This is the first book, The Axe. Book 2 is called The Snake Pit. Okay. Book 3 is called In the Wilderness. And book 4 is called The Son Avenger. Okay. And these are also written in more older, archaic English, like the original edition of Kristin Lavransdatter. But they're very much, if you love literature, you love old language, these are very much worth reading. And the books deal with, you know, all these things about revenge, illicit love, the guilt of, say, like Olav and Ingunn, when they're youngsters, they don't think about the consequences of their actions, and how this plays through for the rest of their lives, the guilt and the shame that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives because of what they did in their younger days. So yeah, very much worth reading if you love this type of epic literature. The books of Sigrid Undset, I've never been to Norway, but reading her books have really made me want to visit Norway. I've wanted to visit Norway over the for years now, and see the fjords, the inland seas, all of that, the mountains. Yeah, but very much worth reading. The Master of Hesviken. Much later, I got, this was published. It's called The Unknown Sigrid Undset, Jenny and Other Works. Okay. Now, Jenny was one of Sigrid Undset's modern novels. Okay. It's about a Norwegian artist who decides to move to Rome to try to find herself. Okay. And, it was considered, you know, very well written in its day, but also some people considered it a rather immoral novel. Okay. But very, the language is beautiful, and there are 2 other short stories in the collection, along with some of Sigrid Undset's own personal letters. But this is a photograph of her as a young woman, a young girl. Sigrid Undset did not go to university to become the kind of writer she did. Okay, she's pretty much self-taught, and she would write. I think she was like an office worker. She worked in the office, and then at night she would write. And she wrote a number of books. And like I said, everything that I've read of hers, whether the modern novels, the modern short stories, her letters, the medieval novels, okay, and the Dark Age novels. I absolutely love everything that she's written, and I highly recommend, if you love literature, if you love international literature, if you love historical novels, if you love realism, if you love novels that are rather philosophical, deep, you know, like if you're a person that likes novels like by Leo Tolstoy or Fyodor Dostoevsky, I very much recommend Sigrid Undset. Her Kristin Lavarnsdatter has been compared in some ways to Brothers Karamazov. It's philosophically deep. It is. And like I said, now all of these, I'm showing these, I have read all of these. Okay. I'm not just presenting these and just, you know, going by, you know, I read the synopsis on the back cover of one of them, but I've read all of these over the years, and I very much need to go back and revisit these books. When I went to school at the University of Georgia, I was a literature major. My undergraduate was English, and I studied American literature, British literature, and African-American literature, and a tiny amount of world literature, but just not enough. My forays into reading international literature was done on my own. I started reading international literature not through my schooling, but I did it on my own. And I continue to love international authors. Right now, I'm reading, sort of gone down the drain for this year, but I'm reading an Egyptian author right now. I'm reading a Japanese author, Sudanese author. Yeah, so I love reading different international authors. Besides Sigrid Undset, I would like to go back and reread the books that I read years ago when I was in university, when I took African American literature. I would like to go back and reread the books that I read for back then. Going to Meet the Man, a collection of short stories by James Baldwin, Native Son by Richard Wright, and Black Boy, Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison, Cain by Jean Toomer, more of the short stories of Charles Chestnut. So all of these, oh, and I forgot Wallace Simpson, well, not Wallace Simpson, that's the wife of the Queen Elizabeth's uncle's wife, but Wallace Thurman, who wrote the novel The Black of the Berry. I really want to go back and reread these classics, these classics by people that wrote during the Harlem Renaissance and before. But I've gotten off on Harlem Renaissance when I was talking about Sigrid Undset, a Norwegian lady. But yeah, I just want to share this with you because maybe some of my viewers are wondering about what are some of my favorite writers. Sigrid Undset is definitely one, and I have read more of her books. I've read more of her books than any other author except for George Sand. Okay, I absolutely adore the writings of these two authors. But yeah, I'm going to end here. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. You probably never heard of Sigrid Undset before, so yeah, check out her books. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm going to end here. So this is Sincere. Until next time.